Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's recap of the Week 10 action brought to you by QuinnBet. Oh, it's getting late early for a lot of teams across the league. The Ravens continue to battle back from the playoff brink, but they put the Vikings in jeopardy in the process. The Patriots underlined their credentials as a true contender by winning the Brady Bowl and dealing another contender, the Bucs, a defeat in their own backyard. The Bears and Giants did yet again what they've both done for most of this past season. The Bears snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, and the Giants pretty much stood aside and let them do that. That result has had immediate consequences for the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll, Kieran, who finally picked up the old P45. I'm not sure what you call the P45 in the States. It's not even quite that pithy, is it? You're fired. You can't hit the bricks, pal.
You're gone, out the door. Yeah, I mean, I thought earlier today that it would either be the bye week or it would be Monday, January 5th, also known as Black Monday. But I mean, it's a cause of celebration for a lot of people, not for me, because it's just another example of a failed project, and just the Giants going further and further in the mire. There's nothing really to be celebrated from this. Daboll came in like came in with sparks and with a glowing kind of resume, and after that initial 22 season, it's just gone downhill from there. An overall record of 20, 40, and 1. It's I don't want to say it's a sad day. It's a bewildering day because there's more news coming out today that Mara is going to stick with Joe Schoen. And to be honest with you, I would rather have had Schoen go than Daboll, if it's all coming down to that. But that's the other thing that gives me concern. So it's not even something you can celebrate or something you can say, all right, well, this is it. We're cleaning house and we're going to turn things around, and we're going to have a total organizational restructure. We're going to look at every little root, every branch, and figure this thing out from top to bottom. And it looks like it's a piecemeal effort. And Mara, we all know that his health is not the greatest, so maybe the football team is not his number one priority, but you would have to think that there's enough people in the building that would be able to make the decision to, maybe get rid of Schoen as well today, or at least at the end of the season. Hopefully that happens. But there's more reading that, he's being tasked with finding the next head coach. Mike Kafka is going to see out the rest of the season if he lasts that long. It's not a sad day. It's not a day for celebration. It's just a mad day for me. I know a lot of people are jubilant on social media, but for me, it's another page in a brutal chapter since February 5th of 2012, when Eli lifted the Super Bowl trophy in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and I got to say, I understand the fandom perspective on this and the ding dong, the witch is dead mentality that sometimes comes out in these moments. I don't think it's ever cause for celebration when somebody loses their job. I know these guys are highly paid, but the consequences are for them and their families. And yeah, we can be dignified in the way we usher people out the door, right? But as you know, I'm more than familiar with the franchise that does things in piecemeal fashion and ends up out of sync between coach, quarterback, and GM. And I feel where you're coming from here, because on the one hand, most GMs get at least 2 head coaches before they get their marching orders themselves. On the other hand, it's hard not to see Schoen and Daboll tied at the hip and the decisions that they've made. You're also now jeopardizing the really promising young quarterback at his development. He's now got a lost half season, and we'll see what kind of chops Mike Kafka has and whether they decide to bring somebody in. It's a pity for the Giants as well. I know it's a pity in a very real sense for you guys as fans, but this is an example for me of the right process producing the wrong outcome. I don't have any problem with the Daboll hire in the first place, and season 1 showed some of the promise and what he's capable of. We know how much credit he gets for the development of Josh Allen in Buffalo, and he knows what he's doing. I think, and you saw this come to the fore again, and he certainly didn't get fired because of this one game. He's gotten fired because of his entire body of work. But you saw it again over the weekend in that Bears game, where coaches get gun shy and they start making really poor decisions. And this was a decision to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter. You could argue the toss about it, but Daboll had become conservative, and he was playing not to lose and playing not to lose his job and making decisions which were based on his short-term interests. You cannot do that. This leads to really bad results for the team, and over and over again in the past year. I just think we have seen him completely lose his mojo and become the worst version of himself. I think he's one of these guys who will go and get get an OC job somewhere, and light up another franchise. And I think ultimately this will have been a good thing for Daboll and hopefully for the Giants. As you now have, but you don't want to be doing is firing your coach too late. It's better to fire a coach 6 games too early than 1 game too late, in my view. At least you now can plan and line up whoever is the next great white hope in New York, and you have an inside line on who it's going to be. You're not going to be doing your process in a rush. You have a chance to interview properly. You have a chance to broaden out the process and hopefully land the right guy. But yeah, as you say, it's not a cause for celebration. It's not a cause for burning the tape either. It's a chance to start anew. And look, bottom line, you still have Jackson Dart, right? We've seen a huge amount of promise in that particular position, and we've seen what he's capable of. We also saw Brian Daboll kind of put him through the meat grinder a little bit. I think Daboll does bear a little bit of responsibility for Dart having to exit that game injured because he was leaning on him too heavily to try and save his own skin. That was not the right thing to do by a rookie quarterback. We criticized Shane Steichen when he did that in Indianapolis. This is not a purely Brian Daboll criticism. Just can't let a head coach break a rookie like that in service of his own self-interest, and that was what was in danger of happening, and that's what did unfortunately happen against Chicago over the weekend. Brian, what do you make of it all?
Well, Connor, I went to the trouble of getting my curriculum vitae ready to apply for the new role as GM for the Giants, because I thought it was inevitable with the news this evening that David had been relieved of duties, that inevitably in the long term, similar to what Kieran's thoughts are, that it was inevitable that the GM would be relieved of his duties.
If I was hiring a head coach, I'd hire you, Brian. Vote Quimby for mayor. If you were running for mayor, he'd vote for you.
Well, we've seen one Brian go out the door. I thought maybe there was another Brian coming in the door. No, but look, all joking aside, I agree with Kieran in the sense of, it's not a day of celebration. I was cock-hooped this evening because I thought there was radical changes coming across the board, as in, okay, this is just one. You're not going to fire both of them now. Okay, and it's obvious the head coach is the first domino to go, and the GM will all likelihood come at the end of the season. But the Giants have made a strategic move this evening, even in terms of the press release. They've done a press release, and if you read the opening paragraph, they've explained why Brian Daboll had to lose his job. But if you want to read the bottom, the devil, the detail, you've got to click on the link to get to the real detail, and the real detail is, exactly what Kieran is alluding to, is that Joe Schoen is going to lead conversations and lead the process to hire the next head coach. I don't think any team in their right mind is going to put that into a statement in November if they have any plans whatsoever to relieve him of his services come the end of the season, because that would even be doubly embarrassing.
Automatically, though, limit your choice of potential head coaching candidates, because he's on thin ice. I'm sure there's head coaching candidates who will have their views on how he has dealt with successive drafts, and finding Jackson Dart aside, the news there has not been good. To say it's a mixed bag would be kind to him. If I'm a head coach, if I'm a promising head coaching candidate, I'm looking at that position and going, not necessarily sure I want to be there.
Yeah, well, I don't think ownership see it that way, Connor, because if you even go into more detail within the statement, they're essentially saying that this team is 2-8 and they shouldn't be 2-8, and they feel they've put a much better product on the field in terms of the players that they brought in over the course of the off season, and they feel they shouldn't be 2-8. And I suppose we could reflect on what we talked last July, August, going into pre-season, which we thought that the Giants put a really strong defense together in terms of the front four, and then they brought in Holland in free agency, which is a safety that people would give recognition as a really strong one in free agency last March. You bring in the cornerback from the Saints. Everything seems to be pointing upwards in terms of the defense. So they're probably looking at this kind of going, no, we feel we put a team together and this hasn't been coached properly. And I agree with you. I agree that what you said about Dart, but that hasn't been this week. Like we spoke about it last week, and even tongue-in-cheek within our own group, about the fact that he was continuously running the life out of poor kid. It was inevitable that he was going to end up with a concussion. They're actually even talking about where the concussion came from yesterday, because they don't necessarily believe it was on that fumble, Connor. But look, it's a mixed bag, because I thought every Giants fans all probably thought it was a fresh, clean house coming, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
These are such small margin things as well. I mean, to your point, and you can see the memes around this all day long about the four games that the Giants have led by double digits in the fourth quarter and lost all 4, and the statistical improbability in that. I think, was it 60,000 to 1? What's that great stat you had about the odds of them managing to lose all 4?
Well, I thought I'd have that ready for you right off the get-go, Connor, but with all the news, I had to pull away from it. But here you go, yeah. The Cowboys game, 92.3% percentage that they would win the game. The Broncos, it was 99.3%. And yesterday in the fourth quarter, it was 96.9%. And the Stats say that ratio alludes to 1 in 60,000 chance that actually happens. There you go. It has happened. And throwing in the Saints game as well, where they had a double-digit lead in the second quarter, it's a bad reflection of a coach and staff in general, not just head coach.
Big time. But to my point, like there's a very fine margin between the Giants being 5-5, and it's a little bit meh, but it's okay. So he's not the ultimate jackass either, right? That this is the NFL. I mean, and it's interesting that it happened after the Bears game, because the Bears were in exactly this position this time last year. They lost a bunch of games that they should have won, including the famous Fail Mary game. They then went and absolutely laid an egg against both the Patriots and the Cardinals, 2 games that they were favored in and somehow managed to lose. And they didn't win a single game until they managed to beat the Packers at Lambeau Field in a meaningless game, week 18 game. Then they get the hotshot offensive play caller in from the Lions, Ben Johnson, and now it's all champagne and roses. It's Bears going to the playoffs, and we'll see whether that happens or not. But like, what a difference a season can make! Like the Bears now being talked of as playoff bound potentially, even in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. It can all turn very quickly. This is what keeps us engaged, right? They say NFL stands for not for long, and that applies to the bad times as well. It can turn around very, very fast.
Yeah, Connor, sorry, just jumping back. I didn't answer one of your questions, which was, it kind of tighten the window in terms of which people they go after. I'll throw 3 names out there that I think they're going to find themselves trying to find another head coach that has coached in the league and has experienced the situation. Very early days, right? So I'm going to show 3 names at you. Mike McCarthy, win ratio in the league with the Packers and with the Cowboys was fantastic. Fortunately for him, his time in Dallas, that particular playoff game where there was so much expectations, was a killer for him against the Packers. Gruden, seems to have that relationship with Jackson Dart. It's whether you want to take the antics that come with that, and people won't like it, but the reality is Bill Belichick and all likelihood will still have that aura around the fact that his Giants history and whether he's going to be coaching the college game doesn't just seem to be, and that's a headache in itself because there's other stuff that come with him now, not just that. But isn't there a kind of variable goes back to the Patriots, and the Patriots all of a sudden have turned things around? Belichick could go back to the Giants and all of a sudden he could turn things around. It's not against the law of possibilities. I know people will think that's madness, but I think they're going to go down a road where they're going to find a coach that's coached in the league before and has the experience of dealing with good and bad situations.
Kieran Boyle, you got a list of names. Who's on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, before I give those names, I mean, what blows me away with the news about Shane staying is, and you see this every single Sunday in the league. You look around teams that were bad last year, and all of a sudden you have a draft, you have 8 to 9 picks, your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounder is out there making huge plays. Look at the Patriots yesterday. Kyle Williams. Who the hell is Kyle Williams? You know what? He blazed yesterday. He had an amazing game. The Giants had an inability in the last, ever since Shane has been there, to find players and to develop players. I mean, we all know about the Evan Neals. I'm still out on Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think I ever will be until he's traded or moved. There's a litany of it from not Kadarius Toney, but from people like Baker, DeAndre Banks. You go A through Z with the list. Shane's inability to draft effectively, and you just use other teams in comparison, is what should be his downfall. But apparently he's been able to hoodwink the ownership and sell them some sort of future that they can believe in. But I can't see, if Daboll's gone, Bowen has to go. Every offensive coach, every defensive coach, the GM, it should be everybody. And I've got a couple of names. I know that the main thing is that I'm thinking in Mara's position right now. Mara, the last 4 coaches have been untried. I mean, he went with McAdoo, then he had Pat Shurmur, then he had Joe Judge, and then he had Daboll. Unproven head coaches, great coordinators, great minds, defensively and offensively, but unproven head coaches. I don't really see anybody. I know Brian had a couple of people from around the league. I'm looking more towards college because at this stage, I don't think I don't think Mara is going to take a
next Urban Meyer is out there somewhere.
Well, I mean, there's somebody. I mean, I don't think ultimately Mara is not going to take a gamble on an unproven head coach anymore because that's failed over the last 10 plus years. There's Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, who's absolutely gold standard. He's probably going to get to the national. They're probably going to win out and end up in the national championship game, and then all eyes will be on him. He has a running back there called Jeremiah Love, who is going to be the next superstar in the NFL. Lane Kiffin is down in Oxford, Mississippi. Lane Kiffin's got a history with Jackson Dart. Now, whether he wants to, Yeah, that too. But
Go
whether he
do some
wants
hot yoga, go and look that up on Instagram. I'll let you do that in your own private time. That's not safe for work. That one right there.
Lane does love the gyms and he loves the college scene, and I'll leave it at that too. But Lane Kiffin, who's had a little bit of experience in the pros, but somebody like him, still young enough, early 40s, but they've gained a huge amount of experience. Marcus Freeman won't be at Notre Dame long, whether it's the end of this year or next year. He is destined for the pros. I just don't, like Brian said, I don't see the Belichick thing. I think that ship has sailed. But the Gruden thing, maybe if he wasn't suing the NFL, that might be an option too. But I'm looking more towards some of the college people and some of the big names that are making a name for themselves in the college ranks. And I think there's more and more the way that the college game is seen. I mean, we saw Lane Kiffin basically ran a pro offense at Ole Miss, which is why Jackson Dart was so able to hit the ground running with the Giants. So look around for some of those names, but unless I can't get excited about it until Shane is gone or some sort of end game for this regime, because at this stage it's you can't do a half done job. It's got to be the whole way.
Brian, one quick point on Dart before we move on.
Yeah, Kieran is spot on around some of the selections in the draft. Like, we got Tay Banks out there. He's a bust, with all due respect. Evan Neal doesn't even get suited anymore. He's a bust. And I know every team does it each year in terms of content from their war rooms. And me and Craig were only talking about this morning. There's a particular piece in that, and any Giants fans who've watched this content will remember Joe Shane, really pushing the envelope in the room around the fact that Brian Dable was the guy that essentially said to them, never mind Shedeur, Jackson Dart is the guy we need to go and get. But he kept alluding to the fact it's your guy. You're the guy who's proposed him. We'll go and get this guy. And I don't know if that was a strategic move at the time. I know it's all tailored and edited, but it felt very much like Shane was putting himself in a position where he was going to make it very clear if Jackson Dart didn't work out when it wasn't my selection. This was very much a Brian Dable selection. Brian Dable was the one that was batting very quickly to get him in. So it's unfortunate because his spell with a quarterback that looks like he's got all the talent to be one of the best in the league right now in the future, just with what we've seen so far, it's just the time is cut short. But it certainly wasn't Joe Shane's selection, but he'd probably end up nodding the credit thereafter.
There is other football news. We had a Sunday night game, Kieran Boyle, between the Steelers and the Chargers. And Brian, you remember my first year on the show, I used to bang my head on the desk every single week because I couldn't figure out which Steelers team was going to show up. I thought we'd got past that. I thought we knew who the Steelers were. It turns out we don't know who they are. They're like a freaking Game of Thrones character. They're completely capable of being something else from week to week. We saw them deal the Colts a big loss last time out. Their defense back to its sensational best. Everybody making plays. Absolutely scary stuff from the new steel curtain. Then they just completely no-show against the Chargers, Kieran. They bring all these fans up to SoFi. There's terrible tells all over the place. Absolute Yinzer takeover in SoFi. But it was a takeover by the Chargers on the field. Stupid, sexy Flanders. Stupid, sexy Justin Herbert getting it done. Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. When he's like that, it doesn't matter that he has no O-line. It's no problem.
Yeah, I mean that fooled all of us because we all thought the Steelers were going to go in there and into the salubrious surroundings of SoFi and just spray the ball around and beat up that hapless O-line. I thought it was going to happen. I thought that decimated O-line was going to fold and make Herbert scramble even more than he usually does. But I mean, that's the thing with this league. You never know from one Sunday to the next who's going to show up or what team is going to get hot or who's going to have a performance like that. I mean, I didn't think the Chargers had that in them, but credit to them. I mean, they've shown now 7-3 in the ascendancy. Players just playing and just making plays. I mean, Kamani Vidal, 95 yards and a touchdown. Where was he at the start of the season? Not on many people's lips. But then it goes back to Rodgers. It's one of those. It's almost like one of the performances we saw with the Jets last year. A lot of promise he had. Talked to Goodwin before the game. Want to put the team on his back, all this kind of stuff, and then just laid an egg. I mean, that was even simple passes he was struggling with yesterday. I mean, he had Jonnu Smith for a relatively easy pass and overthrew it, which led to an incompletion. It looked like Jonnu Smith had the catch, but that was kind of typical of Rodgers and his performance yesterday. Didn't get a lot done on the ground either. Jaylen Warren only had 70 yards, and it kind of highlighted. When you shut down DK Metcalf, who only had 35 yards, when you shut down those weapons, I mean, there's not a lot the Steelers have left except for Boswell. And, he got his trademark field goal, but just a nice performance from the Chargers. I mean,
I'm laughing at the video that did the rounds the other week. That's in the style of the '80s toy ad, where it's Mike Tomlin finishing 9-8 every season. Another field goal, yay!
Oh, and that's where they're trending right now. What are they, 5-4? I mean, they win out and they're what, 9-8. It's right there again. And I'd be frustrated if I was a Steelers fan. Like you said, they brought all the fans. Not that there's a huge amount of Steeler fans all over the country, not just in Los Angeles, but tough outing for Rodgers. Just never got going. Just you could see the frustration. But the Chargers D, I mean, that's the story for me. I mean, Derwin James, Khalil Mack. I mean, we saw Khalil Mack with that safety. That kind of set the tone for the game for the Chargers. Just said, had that whisper in his ear.
That was a wicked reverse spin move.
Yeah.
Like you could see, because Rodgers' mobility, and we talked about this, has just been absolutely transformed from where he was even in his last season with the Packers. Like, he has put in the work to recover from that Achilles. Like, I've been so impressed by how he's been able to move around and how they've been able to open up the playbook based on what he can do versus what he was able to do when he was with New York. His pocket presence, as we know, is preternatural. It's so good. But you could see the shock on his face. Like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
Just did the Top Gun move, pull the brakes, and he'll fly right by. Went spinning one direction, then spinning back the other direction, and nailed.
Yep. Negative Ghost Rider. I think that's what Khalil Mack was whispering in his ear when he was on the ground. He was just saying, "Not today. It ain't happening today." And Chargers were full value for the win. And at 7-3, they're in a nice little spot in the West. I mean, the Steelers have now lost 3 of the last 4, but again, they're right on target for that 9-8, that kind of trademark 9-8 record. What's really troubling for me for them is 0-9 and third downs. I mean, that's going to kill you. I mean, you're not going to win any games in the NFL. You're lucky to put up 10 points even with going 0-9 with third down. So Steelers, tough outing. Chargers, a lot of credit to them because they're making hay even with that decimated O-line. They're able to keep things moving. Not a lot of teams would be able to withstand those 2 hits on those tackles.
Brian, Kieran mentioned DK Metcalf, and if you shut DK Metcalf down, you effectively shut down the Steelers' passing game. That's not necessarily overly simplistic. One of the 2 interceptions that Rodgers threw yesterday was a pass to Calvin Austin. Absolutely should have caught. He bobbles up in the air and it gets picked off. Not an INT that's on Rodgers. The other one was an overthrow, went over Metcalf's head. That definitely is on Rodgers. But that one illustrated what he's got to deal with, because he's got DK Metcalf, he's got 2 really good tight ends, and that's it.
Yeah, they are. I wouldn't say they're limited. It's probably a bit harsh to say they're limited, but they certainly don't have a stellar number 1 receiver. Like, when you think back to when the trade took place last off season with the Seahawks, tip the cap to John Snyder. Like, we've seen a few times now with trades he's made over the last 3 or 4 years. He's in the devil of the detail. He knows the player he's dealing with. Like, they let Pickens go. Pickens has done really well in Dallas despite the struggles, and CeeDee Lamb, like, bear in mind he's playing complementary to CeeDee Lamb. He's had a really good start to the season, and you're wondering, like, Pickens out the door, who felt like he was the number 1 receiver and he wasn't getting the ball enough, to Metcalf, who they genuinely believe was a number 1 receiver. He's not playing at the level of a second-round talent, and you could argue he's not getting the ball enough, but and they're trying to mix up the tight ends. But I just 2 games in particular. Last night, 3 catches. Kind of like this is a road game. You see Jamar Chase, you see T. Higgins. I know they're at a different level to them in terms of their age and the environment that they're in, but they're coming up with 6 or 7 catches a game, and it's not even these big stellar catches down the field, these 15, 20-yard passes to move the drives, and we're just not getting that. He had 2 catches against the Bengals in the shootout game, 3 last night. Yeah. And I think teams are starting to come to terms of how to deal with Metcalf. We just bottle him up.
Conky on the other side, 4 catches off 6 targets for 107 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, and again,
that's what you need.
Yeah, and McConkey takes the pressure off the Chargers. Like, how many times have we seen over the course of the season where the Chargers are in these kind of difficult third and longs, and he's finding ways to put himself in a position and get himself available? And that's just, if we're going to bounce to the Steelers in terms of how they're dealing with wide receivers, that slant route that they just can't seem to pick up over the course of the season, continuously
which is
killing
the
them.
Pass across the middle to him. He gets off the blocks quickly, blows by Jalen Ramsey, boom, it's in the end zone.
And we're seeing that time and time again. And okay, they kind of addressed it to a certain extent last week against the Colts, but it's come back to haunt them again last night in particular. And then the enormity when that actually happens as well, kind of 15 seconds before halftime. Like, if you don't give up those 7 points, I don't think, in all due respect, it would have really reflected the score in the long term. But that's a killer to give away before halftime. It's double-digit lead, and then they're in a long, because this team don't play from behind. Let's be fair either. They need to be out in front. We've seen that over the course of the season when they've been winning games.
All right, let's move to Berlin next. The Colts and Falcons played there. Shane and Ben went along for us. Oh, yep. Had themselves a time in Berlin. Saw the Brandenburg Gate where it was raining men and flag football. Those are Shane's words, not mine. They were playing raining men. I can only tell you what was given to me. That's the Olympic Stadion, of course, home of the 1936 Olympics. That famous 4-medal performance from Jesse Owens. There's Shane and Ben by the sideline. That's Daniel Jones in action. There's the presser after, and that's all she wrote. Ich bin ein Berliner. Gotta love it. First game in Berlin, really lit it up. Bounce back game for the Colts, Kieran. Off the back of that disappointing loss to the Steelers last week, they picked up the W against the Falcons. They didn't look particularly convincing doing so.
No, I mean, entertaining game. I mean, that's probably the best we can say out of all the games abroad so far. Nice back and forth. I mean, both teams had a chance to win it. Falcons will be disappointed that they weren't able to come away with the victory, but again, they just flat out deceive those Jets. Penix 12 completions out of 28 for only 177 yards. That's not good in any kind of description. He took 3 sacks as well, but I mean, this was the Jonathan Taylor show. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
It was not a Penix waving competition, and I promise that's the last Michael Penix phallic reference for the rest of the season. We're better than that. We can be better than that.
And his completion rate is way below 60% after all this, so it's another struggle for him along that kind of developmental road. But I mean, it was the Jonathan Taylor show. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just exemplified by that bounce out move that he just tore up 83 yards on. I mean, you can say all you want about the Falcons and their kind of soft underbelly. I mean, they did have a number of sacks, and they did make sure that they, were physical when they needed to be and stayed within the game. But, you can't let somebody like that just bounce off, get through a big gaggle of people and just tear up the left sideline. I mean, that's a bad look for a team who's kind of trying to establish a kind of tougher exterior that really haven't had over the last number of years, and that's not going to help your case. But when you've got somebody like Taylor who can just burn up 244 yards, and then you've got your complementary pieces like Tyler Warren and Pierce and Josh Downs and all that. I mean, it was a nice performance from the Colts. Daniel Jones kept it pretty handy, 19 of 26 touchdown. He was sacked 7 times. We saw that cut lip or the cut mouth he had. But when you round it out, it's the Jonathan Taylor show. I think he's the 4th player in NFL history to have at least 200 rushing yards and at least 200 yards and at least 3 rushing touchdowns in a game twice in his career, joining, I think it was Jim Brown, Adrian Peterson, and Derrick Henry. So he's in lofty in lofty company, and he's had a great season so far. There's no 2 ways about it. I mean,
Ben, who's watching us live on the comments there, saying he was on one yesterday, absolutely impressive to watch. I'd say that was phenomenal to witness firsthand. And I mean, I'd love to have seen that myself. Yeah, and when you think about it across the spectrum, yesterday really was a day for the running backs. I mean, it was really a standout. Every game almost had and we'll go over some of them later on, but it was really a banner. We will talk about one such in just a moment when we get to Trayvon Henderson. Yeah, banner day for the running backs. I mean, Falcons have plenty of chances to win this. I mean, they'll be kicking themselves. Decent performance from Bijan, 84 yards on the ground. They got Drake London involved with a touchdown, but it's unfortunately it's one of those kind of Falcons performances where it's nearly but not quite, and they flattered to deceive yet again. They've dropped to 3-6. Colts just marching along. I mean, you can't really pick too many holes in that team right now. O-line is looking pretty good. Defense is still holding up their end of the bargain. And when you got somebody like Jonathan Taylor who can bust out for 200 plus yards in any game, you've always had a great chance to win. So nice win from for the Colts. It looked like a good atmosphere there yesterday too. Looked a little chilly, but nice win from the Colts. Yeah, the Falcons dropped another one they should have won, but it didn't actually cost them as far as the NFC South is concerned because the Bucs got turned over in the Brady Bowl. We'll talk about that next.
Great odds, you're in control, you always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
Now, as we said, New England travelled to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, hoping to turn their 6-game winning streak into a 7-game winning streak in what was dubbed the Brady Bowl, as the locations where Tom Brady won both 6 and 1 of his Super Bowl titles, respectively. Brian, I've one little stat here which tells a lot in 2 ways about this game. Sean Tucker went 9 carries for 53 yards for the Buccaneers. That was their standout rushing performance. That is the first time all season that the New England Patriots have allowed any running back to go over 50 yards. This is what they can do, even a high-powered offense like the Bucs. And it took them a while to get into gear. Baker Mayfield did go for 3 touchdowns in the end, and they came roaring back into this one. But if there was a game that you wanted for the Patriots to show what they could do, this was it, right? We've talked about soft schedule. We've talked about them kind of getting a couple of surprise wins here and there, but this was a legit victory against a contender coming off a bye week away from home. What more do they need to show us?
I was going to say go and beat a big team who's going to be reaching for the playoffs, but that's the Bucs team, isn't it? I would say probably doing disservice to the Patriots, and I'll probably get slated for this. I thought the surroundings of the weather and the climate yesterday actually suited the Patriots more so than it suited the Bucs. Connor, we've seen teams go into that environment on a nice hot day down in Florida, can't deal with the situation, can't deal with what's ahead of them. But because the weather was so off-putting and the rain, it actually suited the Patriots in terms of how effective they can be in the run game. And we saw that, over the course of the 4 quarters with the rookie running back goes off for 2 touchdowns. And you touched on the numbers there, like the Bucs are really missing Bucky Irvin badly, and they're not getting enough out wide. So it suited the Patriots yesterday. Sloppy conditions. The Bucs never got going. We never saw the juggernaut offense we saw earlier on in the season, and it played into their hands. And they were chasing the game from half time essentially, because even me and Kieran alluded to last night on the Instant Reaction podcast. Most teams take a 3-point field goal there for half time and live for the next drive in the second half and go in at 10-0. Not Vrabel. Vrabel said, let's manage the clock efficiently here. Let's give ourselves one more strike to go in at halftime. That was a huge turning point. To get the touchdown there, Connor, 14-10 at halftime. I know the Bucs came back, but even then, the Bucs, the fact that the Bucs were gone for 2 points so early in the third quarter struck me as they didn't feel they could stop this running game of the Patriots, and they're going to try ultimately to get as many points on the board as they possibly could. It's a huge win. It's a huge win for the Patriots because obviously we've seen what's gone on in Miami with the Bills losing. The Bills, for me, just don't sit right at the moment. I know they beat the Chiefs last week, but they're inconsistent. Josh Allen is not playing at the level in which you're seeing. Maybe it is there for the Patriots to go and win this division this year because they're playing complementary football both offensively and defensively right now. And Drake May, MVP chance coming off the field. Sure, why not the way he's playing? You can't argue with it.
Kieran, I hate to be lazy and use cliches, and I try my best to avoid that, but let me use one here and just forgive me for a moment. Coaching matters. This time last year, the Patriots had a bunch of guys. This year, they have a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, I mean, and again, going back to my earlier point about the draft, I mean, who's the guy that ran for 147 yards yesterday? TreVeyon Henderson, Ohio State. That's the difference in teams from one year to the next. I mean, the Patriots were always building. You saw with Drake May last year, and you saw they're starting to build on the line with Will Campbell. But when you got somebody like can just bust out like TreVeyon Henderson, 14 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's Ohio State football right there. I mean, regardless of the weather. The field was cut up a little bit. South Florida was playing there Thursday night, and you saw in Miami too. The University of Miami was playing on that field. They need their own stadiums quickly because those fields were getting cut up pretty much towards the end of the game yesterday. But I mean, it was the TreVeyon Henderson performance. I mean, on top of the Drake May, obviously we heard about the MVP chance and all that stuff, but it's more unheralded for me. It's more unheralded players, and I mentioned the guy earlier on, Kyle Williams. I mean, TreVeyon Henderson, Kyle Williams. These are the difference. I keep talking about this point all the time. Last year with the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs, 4th, 5th, 6th, all those guys that were in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounders. You've got to start drafting players deeper in the draft and getting value there because a lot of these.
To my point, it's not just that these teams are consistently lucky or somehow they know how to find the players that others can't. It's that they know how to develop them.
Yeah. And that's it. It starts from the top down. It starts from the GM down to the coach. I mean, Vrabel, you can already see Vrabel's a dude. The players love playing for him. They're giving him game balls at the end of the performances. You saw him in the tunnel welcoming every player back into the locker. You don't see every coach doing that. And the fact that he's
you go back to the when they had the joint scrimmage there. I can't even remember who they scrimmaged with in the preseason, and there's a fight and Vrabel's in the middle of it, breaking up the fight, and he gets a dig in the head for his troubles and comes away bloodied. And you could see it was almost as if he set it up that way. Like that was just like Vrabel showing the guys what he's made of. It's a guy people want to play for and they want to run through walls for.
Yeah, and it's like Campbell at Detroit. Former players, hard-nosed football players. Tight end, linebacker, similar kind of physicality, but they're football guys. I mean, and you want to run through a wall for them. They've heard all the motivational speeches over the decades they've been playing, and they're just imparting it now onto their players, and you can tell the difference. I mean, there's longevity wise, you can look at somebody like Dan Campbell and then Mike McDaniel in Miami, who's going to last longer in the league. That's just the bones of it. But yeah, it's a bunch of dudes in New England now, and they're between the drafts. I said Will Campbell already. You got Christian Gonzalez back there, even somebody like Clavon Chason. I mean, again, more unheralded players. You can't, if you went out in the street and asked for, can you name me 5 players on the Patriots team? They'd probably say Drake May. That's probably about it. It's a lot of under the radar players. We know Stephon Diggs is there, but he's not really grabbing all the headlines. It's all the kind of surrounding cast. Hell, even Matt Collins is out there making crazy plays and helping his team. But it's all around. I mean, there's nothing but admiration I have for this Patriots team. Again, I'll keep harping on it every week. I picked them for 10 wins, and they're probably going to surpass that. They might get to 12 when all is said and done. Again, I know Brian said they haven't played a huge amount of talent, but you can only play who's in front of you, and it'll tell in January where this team is. But right now, I really like where they are. Drake May as a quarterback, I would have loved to have with the Giants. I'm okay because we have Jackson Dart, but he was somebody I was really coveting. But you can see he's a leader too, and you can see that he's just got that adventure streak. Again, gets a little loose. He did throw a pick later on in the game, which could have been costly, but he's got that kind of cavalier spirit. And you don't want to. We talked about it with Dable. You got Dable coaching scared, and you got Vrabel there who's working the clock, but he's also given his quarterback leverage, and he's given his quarterback freedom to chuck the ball when it's necessary. Not a lot of teams in those conditions would have lobbed it out to Matt Collins for that 60 something yard completion. So that shows the faith he has in Drake May. But Kyle Williams, Jared Wilson, Craig Woodson, Elijah Porter, these are players that are making a huge contribution to this Patriots team. You won't see them on Sunday Night Football highlights, but they're there chipping away, getting the yards, making the tackles, making the plays. It's all there in the stat sheet. And I'm really, somebody who's, we always look for a team to root for, or a team to kind of get behind in the playoffs. Despite the fact I'm a Giants fan, I got no ill will towards the Pats. I think they'd be.
No, I know I slag them usually when Shane's here. It's not as fun when he's not here. But to your point, they chop wood and they carry water. Like they're building a team in the right way, and they're getting it done. And there's a lot to admire about that.
There's absolutely everything to admire.
It's just good football.
There's everything to admire about them. I mean, if you were a neutral, you would probably want to hitch your wagon to that team because there's no egos that we can see. Diggs has got his own issues. He's got baby mama number 18, so he's got his own stuff going on. But you got everybody else is buying into the Vrabel situation.
Stephon Diggs, he just doesn't do contraception.
But there's no outlandish superstars. They're all hungry. They're all 1, 2, 3 year players. They're all going for the ring, and it's a great team to rally behind. And I think if there's a Pats fan club in Ireland right now, I think you should be clipping the last 4 minutes and sending it to them.
Yeah, a future GM is going to fill a whole wide receiver room with little diglets in the future. Stephon 3, 4, 5. It'll all happen there. Brian, I wanted to touch briefly on Ravens. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Craig's comment there. That's so childish. I'm not going to mention it, but it did make me laugh. Ravens Vikings, Brian, which was low key a game with a lot of consequences because of what happened in Sunday Night Football. Steelers dropping one against the Chargers. You go from a situation where the Ravens were in danger of missing the playoffs and were way behind the chase. They've now won 4 games on the bounce. They're 4-5, and the Steelers are 5-4. There's only a game in it in the AFC North. Suddenly it's gone from where the Steelers looked like they might be out of sight and the Ravens were in danger of needing snookers to a very different situation. The Vikings, on the other hand, now drop into a losing record in the NFC North, where the nearest team to them is the 6-3 Bears, and the Vikings play the Bears next weekend. So it's all heating up nicely in both AFC North and NFC North after this game.
Yeah, I'll start with the Ravens. It took a long while for them to get going yesterday, and I know they got a lead just before halftime. But the first half, I selected the Vikings. In the first half, I was reasonably comfortable in thinking that my selection might come right at the end of the day. But as the game evolved, JJ McCarthy evolved, and I don't want to be showing cold water on any Vikings fans that right now think he's the next second coming. But
I don't know what to make. It's very early, and like you say, we shouldn't be going either way. But I was kind of laughing. I don't know if anybody watches Saturday Night Live and has seen the recent Sabrina Carpenter skit, tall playing boyfriend. I was kind of looking at JJ McCarthy going, is he tall playing boyfriend of the quarterback world? What does he do for a living? He's 6'5". Can he be a leader of men and take my team to the playoffs? He's 6'5". Who knows?
Right now, he's not convincing any Vikings fans that he is the leader of this team in the future. I know they had the big win last week, and we spoke about last Monday the enormity of going in there. But I'm not trying to dismiss the victory, but these divisional games, and in particular in the NFC North, and you know it very well, Connor, form does go out the window. The Vikings went in last week as 8.5-point favourites, and Kevin O'Connell, we should not forget, is a great head coach, and he schemed a fantastic approach, and they won the game. You touched on last week, McCarthy's numbers didn't jump off the charts. It wasn't like a rookie quarterback went in there and had a stellar game. He made crucial plays at big times in terms of...
He did, but they managed around him largely, which is what you should be doing with a rookie quarterback, which you can only do so much of that, especially, and it's a tricky one, and we've talked about it a lot. They won 14 games last year. The standard in Minnesota is high. This team is built to win now. They don't have a huge amount of time to wait for JJ McCarthy, so on the plus side, he gets to play in a winning team that knows how to protect him. On the downside, the expectations are very high from the start.
But they're not a winning team right now, Connor. That's the thing. Like last season was last season. Yeah, they go into a season with heavy expectations. We see time and time again teams drop off from the previous season. It's funny, Nick, who we know well, Nick CBS Minnesota was in contact with me today, and he feels that Kevin O'Connell will, it's bizarre to say, he thinks Kevin O'Connell will be under pressure within a year or two because he's gone out on a limb for him. Like he had the opportunity to go after Rodgers this offseason. You put Rodgers in this team right now, you'd wonder, wouldn't you?
I don't disagree with that. Like, I mean, we can project and we can get carried away with ourselves looking a year or two down the line. But at a certain point, if you let Darnold go, if you let Daniel James go, if you bet the farm and JJ McCarthy and it's not working, of course there's going to be questions to answer because, like you say, you're taking a team that's in win now mode and jeopardize their chances of actually winning by stubborn adherence to potentially a quarterback who's not going to pan out. It's a big risk for him, a huge risk. I mean, another one you might mention in the same breath, and it seems bananas to say it now, is Matt LaFleur going to be under pressure in a year's time if things don't pan out this year for Green Bay? Like it can change very quickly. You're all in. You made a big move to bring in Micah Parsons. You got to at least make the championship game this year, or he's going to be on the hot seat.
Is that a Bears fan trying to find a way to heap the pressure on the Packers before they even play on Monday Night Football?
In the press box, just making sure I'm getting my reverse jinx on early.
Yeah, well, look, just jumping back to the Vikings slightly before we move on. That we are essentially looking at a rookie quarterback in a team that is built to be certainly within the championship game reach. Like he didn't play last year; he was out indefinitely, came back, and he's been out for large parts of the season. So even the injury jinx, it has to be a concern. If he was playing lights out football, even in the games in which we saw over the course of the season, you could probably say, I can live with that with the injury concerns that they have. But right now, we've got injury concerns and we're not seeing enough of them. And maybe people say he's only coming back from injury, we need to give him time. But ultimately, we're now in November. Time is of the essence. The division is very competitive right now. And if you next Sunday's a huge weekend within the division with the Bears going on their own. And right now, the line is reflective of where both teams are. It's only a 2.5-point spread with Quimby. You wonder where the selections are going to go. I would imagine it's a mixed bag, by the time we put in our picks at the end of the week.
Kieran, Jets Browns, I know you love talking Jets. They're on a 2-game winning streak, my friends. The Jets are back, baby, even after they traded their best players.
Jeez, I didn't think we'd be talking about this game on a Monday.
Only because you're on it. I just threw it in there just to see you smile. After
we skipped over it on Thursday as a non-runner in using racing terms. I mean, what can you say? I mean, they're 2-7, fairly good value for the win yesterday. Yeah, they were playing the Browns. But did look bleak when Njoku ran off for that got that touchdown at the start of the game. But when you have a kickoff return and a punt return, and that you have 14 points within, and
Breece Hall breaks off a 42-yard touchdown run, like it felt like they got all of their bad luck back in one game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's how the league goes. I mean, teams get terrible luck, and then they get terribly good breaks, and that's what happened to the Jets yesterday. Bad weather. I mean, not a huge amount of pressure. There was probably 20,000 people in MetLife yesterday. That was a fairly bleak landscape when they were panning around for the stadium, and that was, I don't know how many tickets they sold, but it was definitely not what was in the stadium. But I mean, I'll give the Jets credit. You know, they made the plays. I mean, the Browns' heads were spinning after those two, the kickoff return and the punt return. I mean, you're down 14-7 after just scoring. And the Jets were able to hold on. I mean, like you said, Breece Hall got that touchdown afterwards. Justin Fields basically just hung out at midfield and either handed the ball off or did a couple of quick slants. I think he had 57 total yards in the game of passing yards. But you know, we always suspect the Browns are going to kind of struggle to put up points. I mean, their offense is Quinshon Judkins and it's Jerry Jeudy, and that is not exactly something that will get fans excited. It was an unheralded game, but saying that, the Jets are 2-7, the Browns are 2-7. The Jets, I mean, I heard someone on the fan today say that who would have thought the Jets would have a better, you know, the Jets might finish with a better record than the Giants this year. And it's obviously there's a lot of the season to go still, but it's another win for the Jets. They might have had one week one. They've had a couple of unlucky games, especially the Broncos game, but you know, they managed to win, and winning is contagious. I mean, you win, all you got to do in this league is win one. I mean, it's a win now league. Win the game you're at right now. Don't worry about next week. Just get the W now, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, they got the Pats next week. It might come to a halt, but maybe they pull off another win. It's not a terrible team. They, like we saw, they offloaded a lot of talents. Sauce Gardner. I mean, not to go on a tangent about Sauce Gardner, but 2 first rounders for somebody like him. I mean, his name should be Ahmad Gardner. I think he's got so much traction because of his nickname. But Jets back to winning ways. We'll see where it leads. Aaron Glenn is definitely a much more relieved and more relaxed person today in East Rutherford. So we'll see how it pans out for the Jets next week.
Brian.
I said it'd be a rocking chair game in Miami. Connor, I was right. There was a rocking chair game. It was the Dolphins that were utilizing the rocking chair. This division is quirky. How bizarre would it be if the Jets were to go into Foxborough on Thursday night and beat the Patriots after knotting the Patriots up over the course of the last few minutes? Big game ahead.
I've seen it happen enough times this season, including in that Dolphins-Bills games, that I'm not gonna rule it out. The league can bring you back down to earth very, very quickly and humble your best laid predictions. Brian, I did want to talk about the NFC West, from 2-7 teams in the Jets and the Browns to 2-7-2 teams now in the Rams and the Seahawks, who got themselves a bit of breathing room from the Niners in the NFC West. I think we can rule out the Cardinals now at this stage from making any sort of push, but Rams and Seahawks looking like the real deal. It wasn't just that they won their divisional clashes, it's that they piled on the points and really didn't leave either the Niners or the Cardinals a chance.
Yeah, it was a bit strange in a way, kind of. You're watching both games kind of on red zone at the same time, and you're seeing, I'm not going to say that Seahawks are being built predominantly on defense this year, but essentially their defense took over the game very early on, with the exception, obviously, of the early touchdown. Like, they had back-to-back touchdowns returned by the same player. And it was like the Seahawks of old, 12th man going in there, putting a number on the Cardinals. And at the same time, we've seen a Rams offense that we know, when we spoke about it in the offseason, that if they get their mojo going and we get Matthew Stafford back playing at a level in which we've seen in the past, there's very few teams that can live with them, even particular defense. And I acknowledge that the 49ers haven't got an abundance of players defensively in terms of what they should have because of all the injuries, but we're literally watching a Rams team that right now have clicked into gear. I think we all selected the Rams to win. I think we felt the 49ers were in a situation. I think you're right. I think what we're seeing over the course of the last few weeks, and it's starting to evolve, is that there is two stellar teams going for the West this year. And despite what 49ers fans will believe is it's a great team that are struggling with a lot of injuries, I think they're outside the mix. It's very much, for me, it's a wild card or bust for the 49ers right now.
I know we still got a lot of football to be played, but I'm looking at the Rams and the Seahawks and I'm saying whoever else is making the playoffs, one of these teams is going to be a very dangerous floater in the wild card round. You do not want to be meeting whichever of these teams ends up at that wild card spot.
Yeah, and if it is to be Seattle as the wild card, and again, I'm not
won all their games on the road.
Exactly. So they won't be fearful of going anywhere in this particular league. I think I'd be more concerned of the Rams team to go on the road as opposed to the Seahawks. I think they'd be the most comfortable with. And then on the flip side is that people may not be overly concerned about going into SoFi and playing a playoff game because we know the nature of that and what that does for home teams. Obviously, last night was a bit of we saw it last night. Okay, an abundance of Steelers fans, I didn't count on the result in the end. It looked like they're playing this weekend. It's going to be a huge game this weekend. So, like, the 49ers are probably reflecting on it and saying, we're not able to count you, but we got to do our business this weekend because one of them is going to knock each other off. But it's going to be a really difficult game to call this weekend.
Kieran, one quick point on the Jags before we leave. You obviously get to listen to a lot of the fan radio there and the call-in radio and hear the temperature after a game like that where they were completely in control against the Texans and just blew up.
Yeah, and I got to tell you something. The tide against Trevor Lawrence has well and truly turned. The patience level and the goodwill towards him has now gone to 180. If I was Trevor Lawrence, I'd be really nervous right now because the leadership that he showed yesterday. I mean, the Jags in the fourth quarter, 3 and out, punt, just getting sacked. Didn't even give themselves enough room to get Little out to try a long kick. But the way they capitulated, 1 net yard in the fourth quarter, the way they capitulated in the fourth quarter was, I mean, you listen to Jags radio here. They've seen some bad defeats over the last 30 years. And that one is up in the top echelon.
There was a shot of Lawrence grabbing his helmet after the Texans' second last drive, when the Jags were still on top, and he's kind of rolling his eyes and going back on the field like, oh, this again. And you're looking at him going, if you're a real leader of men, you're rallying your guys saying, let's go and close this fucking thing out.
Yeah.
You just don't see that from him. You just don't see what you get in the sideline from Baker or what you get in the sideline from Matthew Stafford or what you get in the sideline from Joe Burrow. The guys who really are tried and trusted and can bring their guys through the flames. You never get that vibe from him. He looks like the fair weather friend.
Yeah, and you've never got that vibe off him his entire career, but it was just amplified and magnified yesterday when they needed somebody to get the game by the scruff of the neck and get through that fourth quarter. Just went missing, and it's a really damaging loss to the Jags because I think that's, if there was ever any doubt in Cohen's mind, which I think there was a lot about his faith in Lawrence going forward, I think whatever faith he had in Lawrence is gone at this stage. I think he's got one eye towards there is a good 3 to 4 quarterbacks coming out in the draft, decent quality that he will be looking towards. We know what he did with Tampa, with working with quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is not his man. Lawrence he's been given a pass because he started with Urban's disastrous year. He went through the years with Doug Peterson, got another pass for that, but stakes are higher now. Cohen's talked to Goodwin, Gladstone's talked to Goodwin. You've even got Tony Baselli talking to Goodwin. Look, Trevor's not able to back it up, and this could be there could be a parting of the ways come January, February with Trevor, who's going to take on his contract. They might have to eat a whole bunch of money, but if Cohen wants to advance what he wants to do in Jacksonville, I think they're moving on from Trevor Lawrence, unless there's an absolutely profound, I mean, again, you got to remember they've got to play the Colts twice.
I'm going to say it now when you could dig out the clip next year when it happens. Trevor Lawrence, the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell's latest reclamation project.
I mean, there you go. I mean, it's wheels and roundabouts. I mean, who knows where he's going to end up? But at this stage, I highly doubt he's going to be in Duval County next year. I think Cohen's plan is not going to involve Lawrence because Cohen's got aspirations way above what Trevor can provide right now. That $55 million contract that Shad Khan put up per year is something that they would like back right now. But we all know the way quarterback contracts have been. But yeah,
shocker for Khan.
Yeah, and tough times in Jacksonville. I mean, they brought the Texans right back in it. 5-4, the Jags. Texans are 4-5. I mean, who would have thought that? You bring C.J. Stroud back, and again, the Jags got to play the Colts twice. And I'll probably sidle on to that game in Duval whenever it is in December. Yeah,
December the 8th.
December 8th. There we go.
Getting your schedule ready for you there, Kieran.
There we go. Yeah, tough times in Duval. I mean, they are crestfallen today. Really are.
Connor, can I just throw a quick point in before you wrap up? This Trevor Lawrence story just reminds me of that scenario. I'm not going to throw a team. We've seen it year in, year out. It's always around the draft period where there's a team selecting in that range between 8 and 16, and they really want to get a quarterback. And they quickly, as you get closer to the draft, they quickly realize teams that are not going to move who are up there, and they say, you know what, we need to find an alternative answer, and that alternative answer will be a trade to get Trevor Lawrence. That's what it feels like. That's the type of thing that feels like is inevitable. I even saw the Vikings suggest today. Connor, you must be on the same page as me. Bear in mind, we're talking about Kevin O'Connell and JJ McCarthy. Kind of, is that the one? We wonder.
Right, we shall see. Watch this space and keep watching us. We're back for the Thursday night football preview game, and of course for our live show on Thursday night, where we'll pick all of the games for Week 11. Week 11, can you believe it? We're already in the downward slope of the season as we hurtle towards the playoffs or towards early round draft picks, depending on how your team is trending.